All right, we'll let everybody get joined in. Happy Wednesday. I see some good familiar names coming in. Thank you guys for joining us. We've got some really fun things to talk about today. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to join in. So Jodi, tell me about while we're letting everybody join, this is kind of the fun part. Tell me either about the coffee mug that is sitting on your desk or one of the books, either one.
So the coffee mug is a good one because I think it describes me, and I really think it should be a theme right now. Truve actually gave me a T-shirt, and they have the same thing on a T-shirt. But a lot of people talk, less people do. And my chief technology officer a few companies ago at a lender gave that to me, and it has been my pencil, if anybody ever uses those anymore, holder to draw attention to the fact that we can't just talk, we have to do.
Yes.
Less blathering, more doing. Let's go.
Yes. There actually is a book that it is titled Get Shit Done. And it is for those of you that have not read it, it's like, there's like themes for chapters, but it's all just quotes basically. So if you ever at the point where you're like, oh, I need motivation to, whatever, you can just open up the book and it
Yeah.
will be that good kind of either smack in the face that you need to actually get moving again, or a good way to kind of motivate, you back into the swing of things. So
I
it's kind
like
of,
it. I'll have to check it out.
yeah, it's a fun book. I'll share it with you. All right, well, let's go ahead and kick things off. Happy Wednesday, everybody. In case we have not met before, my name is Melissa Langdale. I'm the president and COO of the Mortgage Collaborative. We are super excited that you are here with us for our first public SparkLab, which is really exciting. We have had SparkLab for quite some time now. I think August or September of last year was our first SparkLab that we hosted, but it was closed off just for our network. And so we're really excited to be able to open this up for everybody now, and excited that you're here to experience that with us, and really excited to have Jodi Hall as our guest today. Jodi, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I hope I don't say anything that makes this your last public appearance.
No, you won't, I promise. It'll be fine. For those that have not joined SparkLab in the past, if this is your first time joining us, this is a show all about innovation. And actually, before I go down that road, even though y'all can see the chat, make sure that this is meant to be super interactive. So if we're talking about something and you want us to expand on it, please put stuff in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if for future sessions, if we don't cover something today that you're like, gosh, I really wish I could learn more about this, please just send me a note or put it in the chat. I will make sure that we will cover it in future months. We have some really great speakers lined up over the next couple of months. So excited to get all of that happening. So, all right, we'll go ahead and kick things off. So about the show, we have launched this show to solely talk about innovation in the industry. And I want to take a moment to kind of level set what really innovation is. It's not just technology, although we do think about innovation with technology going hand in hand, but really technology is a tool for innovation. Innovation is really about leadership, looking around the corner and intentionally designing a differentiating product or service that is based on where you think the market is heading. So it's a, kind of equal parts prediction of the future. And then, as Jodi's cup says, getting shit done to make sure that you really have something that's differentiating for your company as you're kind of predicting the future. So that's what we're going to focus on. We are going to talk a lot about kind of new and emerging technologies as a part of this group. But really, innovation can also be as simple as just rethinking your workflow design, or rethinking a product that might fit where the market is going right now. And so we're going to touch on all of those things in this group. I want to spend a little bit of time and make sure that I'm seeing in the chat, Cameron, we miss you too. So I had to chat on, or I had to make sure Cameron heard me. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about innovation in the sense that are a couple of really good use cases. Y'all probably the easiest one for us to all kind of think of is probably the BlackBerry to Apple or the Blockbuster to Netflix transition, right? Really when Blockbuster happened, right? Y'all remember there was these huge retail stores that used to house all the videos that we would go watch. And then every Friday you would go with your family and pick out like the one video that happened to be left by the time that you know, showed up. And Netflix just said, hey, there's an easier way for this. Y'all just pick what you want. We will actually ship it to you. And so it really started with a very simplistic version of what we have today, which is very much on demand. And it is predictive, right? They can see you've seen X number of shows and now we think you might like X, Y, and Z. And so it's really transitioned and evolved how we see movies, how we even experience TV shows as a whole. And as a mortgage industry, y'all that have known me for a long time have heard me say this a billion times. Jodi has, I know. But in the 20 years that I've been in it, we've taken pieces of paper that people used to push across the desk to us, and we've taken a picture of that piece of paper, and then we've put it up on the screen, and we're like, hey, we're digital, right? And it's super fun to think that we can operate without the actual physical paper. But there's a lot more that our industry needs to do in order to really leverage the data that comes out of those documents. So I see that picture on the screen is kind of Netflix version 1.0, right? We figured out that there's a way for us to operate easier and better, but how do we start to leverage what's on that piece of paper, the data that lives in that space, or even direct to data connections to start to think through kind of predictive analytics and leveraging other technologies to help us to better serve consumers and sell loans easier with less risk in the secondary market too. So we're going to talk a lot about that in this show. So would love to hear from you guys, but Jodi and I are going to just chat for a little bit. So I know I've talked for like the first, I don't know what, 8 minutes here, and it's time to hear from somebody much smarter than I am about all of this. Jodi, tell us a little bit about Down the Road.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do that, so right now we're in the phase in the mortgage industry of, remember Redbox?
Yes.
So we went from Blockbuster to we're at Redbox, and now we need to go to Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe I took a little bit of a strong leap for us.
That was
We have bits and pieces of the Netflix 1.0 in our world.
Yeah, absolutely. So Down the Road, everybody asks me what it stands for. It's really difficult to find an unused URL or a domain to be able to brand yourself or without like stepping on anyone's toes, unless it's your specific name, which I didn't want to do. Down the Road stands for data. So the D is data and spelled out, and the A is analytics, road. And it really is the road to infinite possibilities as we talk about technology, as we talk about, gaining efficiency through workflow automation, and really any way to do business differently, as you say, is innovative. Well, I shouldn't say to do differently. You have to like achieve an objective in doing it differently. If you're slowing the process down, it's probably not an effective way. Yeah. But Down the Road, I set out to work specifically as a lender. I was always wanting to be in the forefront of what was going on in technology. And I was working with a technology provider and being a lending advisor. These are the things that a lender wants to see. Which was a great approach and a different approach than I think that many vendors have taken in the past. And realizing that if you are a vendor who doesn't have mortgage experience, your ability to sell to the mortgage industry, because we do have unique needs. We are a very complex industry, overly complex because of compliance and regulation and the different channels in which we do business. it gets very muddy very quickly. And if you haven't been in that, it's very difficult to go into a lender and saying, I'm going to solve what your problems are. Well, you really don't know what my problems are because you haven't been an operator. So Danda Road was built to be the lending advisor to technology companies in the mortgage space to be able to solve the real problems within the industry. But because I am a lender and an operator, I am extremely passionate about the mortgage industry and helping lenders be able to propel themselves forward in the way that they do business, whether that is through workflow automation. A lot of people ask me to do tech stack audits or tech stack reviews for who they're currently using. And oftentimes people think that that means that rip out and replace, and it's not. I found out probably about midway through my IMB career that if I could work with vendors for them to be a partner and be able to leverage multiple vendors for them to work together to solve problems for me. It took less resources for me internally to solve those problems. So my first go-to when I'm advising lenders is let's look at what you have. So we have to start with where you're at. We have to talk about where you're going to go, and does the technology that you have today allow you to get you where you're going? If it is, let's leave it in place. Let's just try to get the best out of what you have to make it work most effectively for you. And we'll talk about like cost and why that's important given this market as we go through. But yeah, I'm a lending advisor to tech vendors, which I am a doer. So I get heavily involved in strategic partnerships and leveraging relationships on the vendor side. And then I am a doer from the lender advisory side. So I'm elbows deep in workflows, pipeline management, and the overall structuring of some of the lenders' tech stacks.
I love it. And so let's start with maybe the technology companies that you work with. And obviously you have your hands in several of them right now. How do you see them tackling some of our industry's biggest challenges? And are there any kind of solutions that you're seeing that would be helpful for our audience to hear about, or at least maybe themes to the solutions?
Yeah, I definitely think like the first thing that everyone thinks of about technology are like what are the big softwares that we use? So it's, LOS, CRM, point of sale. And and I think that everyone thinks that if you choose a solution, that it's going to solve all of your problems. And magically you cut days off of your turn times, you have a better pull through, like everything that you could imagine that one software is going to be able to solve. And there is not a magic bullet. And it is so different. I actually think that because I research technology for Rice Park Capital for potential investments they're going to do. So it takes like looking at the companies they're potentially going to invest in, and also look at who their competitors would potentially be. And in doing that, what I've realized is that lenders today are at a greater disadvantage because the amount of technology and amount of providers that are out there, that it has muddied the waters even more. And when you're busy running a company and you're in that day to day, you can't be up on all of the technology and what is the best for the different pieces. So I don't know that I have seen themes other than we are extremely saturated in CRM space. We're extremely saturated in the point of sale space. We're extremely saturated in the up and coming LOS space. And I can't point to one that would fit every lender across the industry that is that one aha gotta have it. If you don't have this, you're not going to be successful. Um, and I think the pattern, or what I want the pattern to be, is I want those companies working together and collaborating like we do as lenders within the mortgage collaborative, to collaborate to be able to solve more of the problem, realizing that lenders don't have huge tech teams or huge project management, implementation, change management teams to be able to make a technology successful, and but they could work together to solve those integrations and implementation and change management processes that we've always had such a difficult time with. We make a decision, but we have, okay, now what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said the three big, right? The LOS, the POS, the CRM are kind of core to what every lender looks at least, when you're launching a company, that's where you start, right? You got to get those things in place. So your sales and your operations team and your funnel to be able to sell a loan down the road is you're building all the right pieces to do that seamlessly, both from a consumer experience perspective, but also an investor perspective. You're mitigating risk along the way in that manufacturing process. I think the challenge that most, and maybe we'll have some partners within that space reach out to me and give me some other feedback, but I think the challenge is a lot of lenders work differently. Their sales funnel is different. It's very different in a distributed retail platform than it is in consumer direct. And they all have different kind of needs, especially at that front end of the process, right? The POS platform is interestingly enough, one of the easiest for people to build out. Not the kind of more complex OCR driven interactive platforms. Those are a lot more complex, but the kind of data entry that consumers have to go through in order to fill out an application. The basics of that are fairly simple for people to build out on their own. So, I've heard a lot of lenders that are just trying to reinvent what that process looks like. How do we build out a POS that's simple for the customer, that allows for them to maybe enter in a few points, a few data points, but then kind of pre-populates things as it goes through, especially if they're already a customer, right? If you already know who I am, why do I have to fill out the 365 points of your application process if I've gone through this road before? So there's things like that I see lenders doing that are, I think, really interesting. But the LOS is one of those things, it's like beastly. And we've had the same process for so long as an industry that I think, and you tell me if you think differently, but I think we've taken the process that we used to have when we used to have to move files, physical files, from one place to another place throughout the process, and we've leveraged technology to facilitate that process rather than rethinking about the process altogether and saying, well, what really makes sense in a digital world?
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of this kind of baton passing, even digitally, of the file, where it can only move from processor to underwriter, and then underwriter to processor, and processor to underwriter, and then it's cleared and the processor moves it to the closer, right? Everybody has like a very similar process and how they've built things out. I've started to see some technology companies that are rethinking altogether what that looks like and looking at kind of task-based workflow solutions. But I don't know if they're seeing a lot of traction in the industry. I've seen a little bit of feedback on them, but I like the fact that there's some disruptors, right? Trying to rethink things, but changing how we've always done things is really, really hard, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. And to your point about point of sale, the point of sales that are going to get it are the ones who can create a task-based workflow around a very linear LOS that people are hesitant to move off of. And the way that the industry is going is it's why do we wait? So we ask the borrower a few questions, and don't even get me started on if you are a credit union or a community bank and you're already doing business with someone, why you have to ask them, even if you're trying to cross sell, like, do you have a checking account? Well, don't you know if I have a checking account? But
100%
anyway, we
agree.
won't we
Yeah.
won't go there today.
Yeah.
We'll reserve that for another day. But being able to, first of all, make the point of sale, being able to configure it to be your voice, to be much more personable. We ask people, okay, you're looking to do a purchase transaction, and because the 1003, the ERLA, has made people very transactional, like the objective has become, how do I fill all the points within the ERLA, when I should be trying to building a relationship through the way that I'm asking those questions. So if you say that you're looking to purchase a home, and like, oh, that's a huge step in your life. What is your objective? Are you looking to get a second home? Are you looking to downsize? Are you looking to buy a home because you have a child going off to college and you need a place for them to live, so that you can refer back to that and make it less transactional and more personable. But if I say that I'm purchasing a home and I don't currently own a home, and it's going to be my primary residence, don't ask me in a declaration if I'm looking to retain this property as a primary residence. Like I told you, that was my objective. So we need to look for creative ways to build relationship in that question asking, and then refer back to it in marketing, so that the consumer really feels like they're a part of the process and you really care about what they're doing and they're not transactional. But we also, I've heard that what consumers hate most is, other than like being asked for things that they already provided, is being asked for things that are not needed.
Oh, yeah.
Very generic needs lists get generated out of the ways the point of sales are answered. We need to become more specific based on the product, on the AUS run, as to what truly is needed in that transaction very early in the process, and only ask for what is needed. Then we shouldn't wait until 4 weeks later, when we've collected every last piece of information, to tell them, oh, by the way, your income doesn't qualify for the loan you're looking for. Well, didn't you know that when I provided my income documentation? So that's going to be the success of point of sales, is being able to drive all of those activities further forward in the process, and kind of ignoring the LOS until it's ready to have an underwriter put some eyes on it.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, for me, it's the power of generative AI, right? You go from this kind of rules-based platform that says, hey, I check these boxes and this is my risk profile, and therefore you need to ask for this generic list of documents. To, I see that you check these boxes. Let me calculate a few things on the back end and make a decision on the things that are most relative to your particular financial situation. So I think that, to me, gets me the most excited about how our industry can continue to evolve, and leveraging generative AI for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do see, there are some players out there that are, building blockchain to be able to have that data readily available. They've ingested so many documents for OCR reasons, and then been able to create those databases of information on consumers, or just even the consumer permissioned verifications, and being able to get that data early in the process and make it a process where it's easy for a consumer to understand.
Well, it's easy for them to understand, and that they can trust how the
Yeah.
lender's really going to use that data that they're collecting. In a lot of ways, that is a big barrier. Okay, so we've only got maybe a few more minutes, so I think you and I could probably nerd out on this all day long. But for our lenders in the audience that don't have huge budgets to make big moves this year, where do you suggest they start? Because we've talked about these big platforms and big systems, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to kind of scrap all the things that you're doing and start out with some new disruptor technology. There are some other, solutions out there, right?
Absolutely. And I think, like, you start small where it's the least scary, right? And where there's the least amount of risk. Like, use AI to create a social media post.
Yeah.
Use that in your marketing, and so that you can just stick your foot in the water and then start to see where you want to go. But I do think, look for ways that don't cost you money. that actually can save you money. And we're seeing that in the verification space, whether you're, getting direct to source IRS data for and using the 8821 for your self-employed income calculations. It's not costing you more, it's actually costing you less. And there are solutions out there that will be very helpful in you getting that implemented into your workflow. Looking at your the consumer permissioned data and being able to use that in place of the big verification of employment that we pay a ridiculous amount of money with. Start by looking at just doing a very simple cost analysis. Look at doing things like pulling a one bureau. If you aren't comfortable with soft pull a one bureau credit report and then set your threshold. If it meets this, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump to a tri-merge. If it doesn't meet this, then we're going to stop there. So I think like some of those, the verifications that you're going to need anyway, look at where you're pulling them in the process, and also look to see if there are other alternatives that aren't going to cost you more, actually going to cost you less, and the software solutions will help you implement them.
The other thing that that I've done over the years, and you tell me if you're seeing other lenders do this too, but to just literally map out your process every year. There's bits and pieces that we naturally put into the process because we've had an audit or we've had feedback from an investor or a potential repurchase request or all those things where we're like, oh my gosh, now I'm scared. And so I have to build this extra like Band-Aid into the process, but really you do that Band-Aid as like a reactive move. And oftentimes when you really dig into the foundation of what happened in that situation later on, your move was correct to go ahead and put a control around that part of the process, but then do a deeper dive after to see what's really the root cause of what was causing that challenge, whether it be an audit or repurchase, whatever the case may be. And then design a solution within your existing technology stack that better fits and better helps you to better control, rather than having a higher percentage of loans pulled for QC or an extra person doing another look at some of your documents. There's ways for you to kind of leverage your existing technology. And then the other thing is, for a lot of our technology stacks, and you started to talk about this when we first got on the call, executives and lenders are busy. They're pulled in a billion different directions right now, and there's constantly updates that are happening in those big three core systems. So, and if your LOS update is happening at a different time than your POS update, at a different time than your CRM update, and you don't have an entire team watching those updates, sometimes you can miss things that are possible in those platforms because you're just pulled in a bunch of different directions, or you could miss things that cause extra headaches down the road too. So sometimes just going through and doing a deeper dive into what each of your existing platforms offer, and then seeing what's possible of eliminating parts of your process throughout too can be helpful. Do you agree?
Yeah, and to that point, that's from a vendor perspective, like vendors, if you're seeing one lender is questioning you in one area that has been a pain point to them, call all of your other lenders and ask if they're having the same problem, because a lot of times like the roadmaps go so quickly at vendors that you stay up to speed on what all of their like implementations or integrations or roadmap changes have been, to be able, they may be solving a problem that you have that you didn't even realize that they added to the services that they provide. So I think an annual like vendor deep dive, what have you done in the past 12 months? What are you going to do the next 12 months? And then just keep that loop going. And I challenge vendors to do that between each other and to provide that to the lenders. You want them to remember you because you have helped them solve problems that other people have, and they're not trying to reinvent the wheel on their own.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you don't even know what you don't know, right? There's things that are constantly evolving, as you mentioned. And if you've built a Band-Aid in some sort of custom way within the technology platform, you may not need that anymore, number one, but it also might be breaking other things in your platform that are causing extra headaches too. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that kind of annual review I think is super helpful. All right, well, Jodi, any last thoughts for everybody while you're here?
No, I just, thanks to the Mortgage Collaborative for doing this and having a platform. And if anybody, does need help, it's, have a call where Dan DeRoad is extremely collaborative. We learned from the best, the Mortgage Collaborative over the years and our participation. So happy to help and happy to answer questions.
I love it. Well, we will keep having conversations just like this on how lenders can be evolving over time, what kind of innovative strategies either lenders or technology partners are using too. So excited over the next couple of months to keep building on SparkLab. If y'all, like I said earlier, have any suggestions for us on things you really want us to deep dive into, we've had a lot of suggestions around generative AI, so we can spend some more time on that and how it's different from kind of business role automation, different from OCR technologies. So we can dig into all of those sort of things. But if you have suggestions, reach out to me. Would love to hear from you guys. And if there's anything else we can do for you, let us know. Otherwise, we will see you the second Wednesday of each month right here. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much, Jodi.
Thank you.